Hi there, I'm Chris Novelli with N3 Architecture, and welcome back to the series where we are designing a custom modern home. In the last few videos, we looked at site analysis and then performance programming. And today we're going to take some of the ideas that came up during the performance programming phase, and we're going to do some conceptual sketching. Now, this often happens as I'm working through site analysis and I'm working with the client on the performance programming. These ideas begin to formulate. And what I love to do is I love to just take a minute and to capture these ideas in a series of sketches. And maybe the final design doesn't look anything like these initial sketches. And maybe we're going to explore some different possibilities alongside of these. But it's just a great moment while all these ideas are flowing. And as I have time to think about what the owner really wants and reflect on these conversations I've been having with them, it's a perfect time to grab the sketchbook and put some ideas down on paper. So let's go over to the sketchbook and see what we can come up with. Okay, so in the performance programming video, I think we touched upon some things that were going in a good direction. And what I want to do here is I want to take the opportunity to start sketching out some of those ideas and just see how it would look conceptually. So we're going to go ahead and start working on the sketches. And so one of the things that I really liked was this sort of offset volumetric layout, where it was something along the lines like this. Right, and so if we're looking at the site, this is sort of this outdoor area that has the view of the pond, and then also the connection to the backyard. Having a volume that comes over here provides a barrier or a buffer between the busy street that's down here and this area that the family is going to be using. And then if we add some sort of vegetation over here that frames this pond view, but also provides a buffer from sort of the shared access drive. And I sort of liked how that was laying out. Now, the other thing that we talked about was possibly having some sort of volume that extends out from the sort of kitchen area, right? And if that's like a glass volume there, it can capture this morning sun, right? And then also give a view down to the pond. So we'll have to be careful with whatever we do here. We want to make sure that it frames the view from this potential glass enclosed sitting area, and we want to make sure that you can still see the pond. Whenever I see a volume projecting out, I like to express that in the form. So there's a potential for us to do something with the structure and maybe with the roof right here. Maybe that's some sort of a long skylight element, or maybe this is where our internal stair is. And so from a formal aspect, you have this piece sliding out of the main volume and it's somehow represented in there. The other thing that I thought could be pretty cool is this joint right here can be further expressed by somehow recessing into the volume. Or maybe this is where the volumes get split up, because we know that when we are talking about separate volumes and expressing that in the design. So maybe this begins to look something like this. You know, maybe that this is sort of coming over like this. And then you have this volume that's coming out. And then what you can do in between here is this could become sort of the main entry, right? And so if we're talking about people approaching the house, you know, maybe the garage ends up being back here as its own separate volume. And we talked about sort of coming up that access drive and sort of looping back down. I showed that sketch of a lake house where the porch sort of wraps around and captures your view. So if we have that sort of setup where the vehicular access comes up this access drive, you know, maybe this vegetation can sort of block the view, and then, you know, you can go straight into the garage here, or, you know, the guests can sort of loop around and they have to, you know, maybe they have to walk down a path right here. Maybe there's a path, and then maybe at some point there's a porch element that sort of wraps around, right? This can wrap around and lead you right to this shared sort of outdoor space, right? That's sort of the goal. And so if you're a pedestrian that's coming up, you know, if you've parked and you're walking to the house, maybe there's, you know, a series of stone pavers that lead you up, and then maybe the entry to the house is sort of here, but then the stone pavers can continue right onto this deck area. And this deck can begin to sort of wrap around, capture your view, and bring you into this most sort of public space that you want to get into. And maybe there's some more vegetation that's over here that offers you like a glimpse of the house as you're pulling up, but not a full access. And then, you know, this sort of area up front can sort of be, you know, your living room. And then maybe, you know, one of the things that the client is talking about is they don't necessarily want, or they don't necessarily need everything to be open from kitchen, dining room, living room. I know that's very popular right now, but they also like to have their own privacy. And if there's people sitting in the kitchen having a conversation, they don't necessarily want that to affect the people in the living room. So maybe if this sort of if this glass sort of indentation here, you know, with a view straight back, becomes the main entry, you know, maybe sort of the kitchen area can be sort of over here, and then you have this glass volume here that comes out, and this could be, you know, sort of the eating area or this place to have the coffee, and then, you know, your sort of living room, family room area is up front. And then, you know, we can have another sort of separation here between the garage volume and this, and then, you know, maybe the kitchen ends up being down here, and maybe this overhead condition can relate to the kitchen area. That might work out better, because another thing I'm thinking of is, you know, maybe you can have an entry to the garage, and then you can have this sort of walkway, right, that leads down, and this could be like a public zone. And then maybe inside you have this volume, right? You have this volume. And then maybe inside that volume you have sort of this secondary volume. Right? And maybe this secondary volume can become sort of the primary suite. Right? And that can, you know, again, that's great, because the primary suite can now sort of open up onto this shared backyard area. This could be sort of like a wall of windows that's capturing this morning light, and maybe on the inside, maybe this section right here, you know, looks something like this, where you have sort of a lower volume, and then an upper volume, and then a roof overhang, you know, in section view, and maybe, you know, we have some sort of clear story glazing that allows that sort of sunlight to sort of reflect up and get into this master suite. I think that could look really nice, where you could have, you know, this area right here is this walkway going from the garage to sort of the main area of the house. This right here could be the master suite or the primary suite. You get that sort of, as the sun comes around, you know, you could have clear story windows in both directions, right? And so you could have sort of clear story windows lining that master bedroom, and then have, you know, a lot of glazing right here, where you're not going to get a lot of solar gain and drive up the air conditioning costs. And then you have this view sort of opening into the courtyard, into the backyard. I think that could look really nice. And, you know, maybe if this sort of overhead condition that's in relationship to the glass volume that's hanging out, maybe if that becomes the kitchen, the stair could even be on the side of it, right? And you have this sort of zone right here where you can have the stair go up, or maybe you can go down into the basement from this sort of hallway area. So this right here could be a good spot for the stair, you know, and you can do something nice with that. You know, maybe it kind of sticks out a little bit, if there's a way to sort of accentuate that. And then this could be kitchen, living room, dining room, and you know, maybe this volume just becomes, you know, a little bit bigger down here like this. And so now for this volume over here, I know that we're going to have a few different program items in there. We're going to have the home office that will occasionally be used by the client. We're going to have the guest suite, and then we might also have some sort of like gaming area. So we can, my first thought is, what if the sort of home office is here and sort of the guest suite area is in the back? This again sort of uses the same formal language where we're separating it out into two separate volumes. The guest suite can enter through this offset, and then maybe the home office can be accessed from this deck that's wrapping around. Doing this would allow the home office to have these nice views, and it would allow them to have the nice afternoon sunlight as the sun comes around. And then thinking, if the client ever has people coming over to the home office, they would park sort of up here, and then they could sort of walk down this path and get wrapped around the front deck and into the home office without having to disrupt the rest of the house. So I think that could be a really good setup. The alternative would be to have the guest suite be in the front, so that the guest suite can have the views, but that would put it a little bit more in a public area for the guests, and the guests might be more comfortable in the back. So that's just another thing to think of. And I think that we could do something really cool along this elevation that maybe sort of accepts the deck. Maybe we can have it sort of the form of this house, or the form of this volume relates to the deck intersecting with it. And again, we can do something with the overhead condition aligning with that. So that's something that we could explore further. And then maybe for sort of a gaming room area, maybe we could have something that spans across the main house and this guest suite area on the second floor level. Or maybe that's where the kids' bedrooms want to be, sort of in this area above. And that way, because you know, they would want this living room area in the front here to be a double height space, and you don't necessarily want the kids above the master suite. So maybe if you sort of come up the stairs, maybe the kids' bedrooms are in this second floor area, and that would give sort of overhead protection to this space down below where you're going to be having your outdoor meals. And that could provide, you know, some overhead protection. Can provide some shade. If it's raining or something like that, you can still use that space. And then the kids' rooms kind of become this cool little space that not only has views of the pond in the front, but then also out to the back. And then, you know, possibly the second floor of this guest suite area could become you know, a game room or a movie room where they could watch movies together as a family. That's separate from the first floor living room here. So I think that there's some good possibilities there. Alright, thanks for watching that video, just working through some conceptual sketches. One thing to note is that these sketches that we are working on today could just be one potential design option. These are just things that came up during site analysis and they came up during performance programming, and I just wanted to get them down on paper before the moment is lost, before that magic is gone. Now we're going to also be exploring a few different other potential layouts and a few different other conceptual designs, as well as advancing what we worked on today. And so that will be in a future video, and I hope to see you there. Thanks.